Hey, Kris, you still there?
Yep.
All right. We can't see you for some reason. I don't know if the video's, maybe the feed's not coming through. But that's all right. We'll go ahead and get started. There he is. Gotcha now. All right. Well, here we go. We're live now, and apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll get better at this, I'm sure. We got Kris Bennett here, aka the Blockchain Beard Guy. Kris, can you go for the 5 people on LinkedIn that probably don't know who you are? Can you go through a little bit about your background and how you got into blockchain?
Absolutely. Well, to the 5 people watching, let's not lie. We may not get you better.
We will.
No, this is a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this. So my name is Kris Bennett, aka the Blockchain Beard Guy. I'm a blockchain educator and consultant. Spent a little over 20 years in custom solutions design consulting, working with customers and clients all over the world to help transform their business pain points into beautiful, elegant technical solutions. And about a year and a half ago, I took the blockchain red pill and woke up in the blockchain spaceship with Morpheus and never looked back. So I've been enjoying blockchain ever since, traveling all around the world, teaching people about blockchain and its impacts, how it's going to transform the world, and why it's the internet all over again.
Awesome. So what have you been up to lately? Can you tell us a little bit about some of the trainings you've been doing and who they are and what they're doing and some of the exciting folks that you've been teaching?
Yeah, we're really starting to see an uptick in interest in blockchain in the enterprise, which is very exciting. I think right now all the attention is going to public blockchains, platforms like Bitcoin or Ethereum. They're certainly exciting and hold a huge amount of potential, but I personally think blockchain for the enterprise and platforms like Hyperledger is going to be where we'll see a lot of growth over the next 24 to 36 months. So we've been talking to organizations like Merck, over in Dubai recently, talked to the Dubai Customs Agency. Really interesting what's going on in Dubai right now. They're really leading the world in terms of blockchain adoption. They've got a very aggressive initiative, 2021, Smart Dubai 2021. Part of that initiative is to move all government operations and record keeping onto blockchain by the year 2021. And they're really making great strides towards achieving that goal. So it's just a really interesting place to be because oftentimes when we talk about blockchain here stateside, the question that comes up a lot is, well, all this sounds neat, but why should we care? Why does this really matter? Things are good enough the way they are, and in Dubai it's a neat place because the words "good enough" have no meaning. So that's been really fun, and then I wrapped up a few weeks on the road teaching with Air France, KLM. The group over there actually has their own dedicated blockchain team, about 10 members or so, focused completely on what blockchain can do for them and how they can define what blockchain solutions look like for the aviation industry. So just some really neat organizations to be working with, and they all kind of see the same thing in common, which is eventually the rest of the world is going to wake up and see the power behind these kind of platforms. And when that happens in any of these industries, when it happens in the customs industry, Dubai Customs wants to make sure that they're defining what a blockchain solution looks like for that vertical. When it happens in the consumer aviation industry, Air France KLM wants to make sure they define what that looks like. So
Now,
it's a really interesting time to be in the field.
When you're going into these on-sites with these companies and enterprise, do they have a specific use case picked out in mind, or does it vary? How do when you're coming into these, do they have an idea of where they want to go with blockchain already?
That's a great question. Some do, some don't. And one of the things we talk about pretty consistently throughout all our classes is How do you identify those good use cases? How do you know where blockchain is a good fit? Anytime there's this radical sweeping change in technology, we saw this with .com, we saw it with the PC revolution 20 years before that. You see a lot of people get excited about the technology and then start looking for any use case they can apply it to, which is really kind of the wrong approach. You want to start by analyzing the use cases you'd like to solve, and then for each one asking, hey, is this really a good fit for blockchain? So we spend a lot of time having conversations like that. And what we find is some of the use cases that seem like a good fit aren't, and some of the ones that end up being a good fit are kind of a surprise. And more than knowing how to use the technology, I think the greater value is knowing when the right time to apply it is and when the wrong time is.
So they don't necessarily have to have a use case prior to reaching out and having you come out. That's part of the course, is doing some exploration.
Absolutely, and after 3 days of talking about blockchain, and most folks start from an assumption that I foolishly made for a long time, which is, hey, blockchain, that's just another word for Bitcoin, it's just cryptocurrencies, right? That was a line of thinking that I fell into for a long time. But once these students understand that it's really a lot more than cryptocurrency, and it's just beginning to scratch the surface. Usually by the end of class on day 3, we have a few dozen potential use cases. It tends to, you really get a lot that comes to mind once you wrap your head around it. So we always end up very excited for it.
Amazing, amazing. That's a great lead into our first question here. Our own Melissa Richardson sent this question in. She said that she gets this question a lot. I've been an IT professional for X number of years, and I want to get into blockchain, but I don't code. Where should I start, and can I get into blockchain?
That is a really great question, because it's not just Melissa who hears that one all the time. Yeah, I'm sure you hear it all the time. I know I get asked that all the time. So yeah, it's one I answer all the time, and I think the answer has a lot of value. So happy to share it with everyone.
Great.
I think there's a couple things to bear in mind. A lot of people look at technologies like blockchain and think, there's only opportunity there if I'm a coder or a developer. And certainly there is a lot of opportunity for people with those skill sets, but there's arguably just as much, maybe even more opportunity for people who don't code. So I would say if you're someone who's never coded before and you think that's something you might want to get into, don't be intimidated by it. There literally has never been a better time to learn how to write code. Everything in the blockchain world is either JavaScript based or some type of JavaScript derivative. And JavaScript is now the world's most popular programming language. So you can find so many great resources, free resources, paid resources, books, videos, classes, tutorials, subreddits, discussion groups, etc. It's just never been easier to learn how to code. And if that's the path you want to go down, I think one of the best resources to start with is W3 Schools. They give you really, really great bite-sized lessons you can go through, on at each step, and try it out yourself. If you don't come from a development background and you have no interest in coding, that is fine. Figure out, what is it you like to do? Are you all about marketing, branding, communicating the value of a product or service to a potential customer? If so, there are a ton of blockchain projects that need help right now. If you're into accounting and finance and you're curious about the economic side of blockchain, how it might reform industries like banking and capital lending, etc., and learn about the economic side of it. Really, there's opportunity for anyone. Just figure out what it is you want to do, and do you want to do that in a small little startup environment? Do you want to do that in a big Fortune 100? Do you want to do it with a mid-sized company? Do you want to do it locally in your hometown, worldwide? But the opportunities out there. I think right now, because the technology is so young, anyone wanting to get into it needs to be a little proactive. So a lot of companies don't have job postings, formal job postings up yet, because they're still trying to figure out the technology and they're not even sure what kind of resources they need to hire. But I can tell you, if you start to target and approach the type of companies you like to work for and talk to them about blockchain, you'll find there are probably some people there pretty high up in the organization who are already aware of it, thinking about it. Would probably love that conversation.
To that point, what would you recommend, not necessarily to the developer, but the executive or the manager who is maybe even a little intimidated by this or trying to get their head wrapped around how this applies to their business or their company? Where would you have them start rather than even a developer, someone that's less technical but going to have a team of people under them?
Yeah, great question. So I think it depends on I think that just depends on how much do they want to learn. So if they just kind of want a casual introduction to the topic, I think we can provide down in the comments section or in the video description a link to an article I wrote on Medium, which is really nothing more than a collection of links. They're all YouTube videos that start from very basics and explain how this works, what the value propositions are, why you should care, etc. So that can be a real great informal way to get started. If you want something a little bit more formalized, we do have a blockchain business overview course. And our blockchain architecture course might be a good fit. A lot of people assume because it's an architecture course, you need to come from some kind of technical background. But our view is that a good architect is really the bridge between the technical side of the business and the non-technical senior leadership, the decision makers of the business. So we spend a lot of time talking about the intersection of those two worlds, and it ends up being a class that we think is completely relevant whether you come from the non-technical business side or the technical engineering side of the house.
Absolutely. Well, you have to send us those links, and we'll drop those here in the video after we wrap this up here. So let me jump into our next. Let me jump into our next question here from. I apologize if I don't get this right, but it's Hari on Instagram, Hari. So I apologize if I didn't say that correctly. Can blockchain solve the movie piracy problem? So he's going with a pretty specific use case there. Can blockchain solve the movie piracy problem? What do you have you thought about that one, Kris?
Great question. It may not. So how's that for an answer? So at least I can commit to it.
Right.
No, I think this kind of question comes up a lot. Hey, how can I apply blockchain to fill in the blank vertical or industry? So even though it's a very specific use case, it's still a very big problem. And I think we need to look at two things. What exactly is the problem we're trying to solve? Because there are probably many contributing factors to something like movie piracy. And I also think it's important to go into that kind of use case analysis being completely technology agnostic. So let's not go into it and assume there's a blockchain solution. Let's dive into the problem and what the perfect solution might look like. And if that ends up being something like blockchain, awesome. Then it might be a good fit, might not. But I caution a lot of people towards already making the decision that blockchain is the right solution to that problem and then trying to find a way to fit it in. So I'm sure there are a lot of ways blockchain could contribute. In general, one of the things that blockchain excels at is removing intermediaries from a process. And oftentimes that makes the process easier, more streamlined, more efficient, and just overall more enjoyable to the consumer. And I know specifically with piracy, groups like Amazon or Apple iTunes have really put a dent in privacy because what a lot of pirates were after wasn't not paying for the content. They just wanted a more convenient way to consume it. And so for a long time, stealing that content, downloading it onto your machine, and then being able to watch it anytime you want to watch it, pause it anytime you want to pause it. It's not like your TiVo, you don't have to worry about it filling up. And that was very attractive. So when groups like Amazon or Apple came and duplicated that, what we saw is a lot of people were willing to actually pay for the content just for the convenience. Because now it's a heck of a lot more convenient to buy a season of TV on Amazon with a single button click than it is to try and figure out where the Pirate Bay is this week. And oh, my download made it halfway through and then got dropped, and no one's seeding this particular torrent, etc. So yeah, those are my long ramble thoughts.
Oh, that's great. Great. I appreciate it. I think Harry will too. And that, I think that kind of leads into our next question. It's actually from Ernesto Lee, our CTO at Blockchain Trading Alliance, sent this one in. How do I analyze a blockchain use case to determine if there's any business value? So how do you analyze a use case once you've taken a look at it, see if there is business value in what you're trying to do?
Great question. So I'll answer that two ways. At the very high level, any technical solution, whether it's blockchain or a conventional database or a mainframe deployment, whatever your technology is, any technical solution has to do one of two things. And if you haven't done one of these two things, you're really just wasting your time. You either need to give the user an ability to do something they could not do before, or if you're not introducing a new ability, you need to take an existing ability and make it faster, easier, cheaper, more efficient, less painful, etc., etc. You need to improve an existing ability. So that's always the first real sanity check. Hey, if I attack this use case with blockchain, am I doing one of those two things? Kind of some of the telltale signs that we look for if we're examining use cases are things like, hey, are you looking at using blockchain to automate a business process in a large business network? So not just automate a process internally at your organization, but one that involves multiple organizations coming together and aligning towards an expected outcome.
Have you been sorry?
Oh no, go ahead.
Have you been approached with any? I'm sure you have any crazy ideas or even simple ideas that don't really solve any problems. You don't have to be specific and out anybody, but I'm sure you probably hear that to where you have to question whether or not they're really solving any kind of problem or improving anything, or it's just an idea. And how would you recommend people avoid that?
Well, I'll kind of answer those in the reverse order. The way you avoid that is to, everyone, especially the more technical, engineering focused minds, tend to look at the technology decision first. Hey, what technology do I want to use in my solution? And then they back into the solution design. So you end up building a solution around the platform that you chose rather than the use case you want to address. And so I'll change the names here a little bit to protect the innocent, but I'll give you a really good example of this. It was a white paper that we got asked to review back towards the beginning of the year, and they just wanted some input on the technical architecture. And so let's just call this group PhoneCoin. And their idea was they were going to create a digital currency, a cryptocurrency that you use to pay your mobile phone bill. And so the process they were envisioning is I happen to use Verizon here in the States. So if my monthly bill with Verizon is due, I would take my US dollars, I would go to an exchange like Coinbase, I'd exchange my US dollars for Ether. Then I would take that Ether, go to a secondary ERC20 exchange, something like Ether Delta, and I'd exchange my Ether for PhoneCoin. I would send the PhoneCoin to Verizon. Verizon would go to the ERC20 exchange, turn it back into Ether, and then back to a mainline exchange, turn that Ether into US dollars before they put it into our bank account. So we had to go back and explain, technical architecture isn't your problem. This really isn't the greatest application for blockchain because right now, when my mobile phone bill is due, Verizon just auto deducts it from my checking account, sends me a happy text message. So you've literally taken what is a zero-step process for me, the end consumer, and turned it into this convoluted half a dozen steps. In that case, architecture wasn't the problem. The problem was starting with the assumption that blockchain and cryptocurrency was the solution and then trying to force it into a use case.
Absolutely. So trying to solve a problem that's not there. I think that that's usually what we hear here in the office is people trying trying to solve problems that they don't that nobody really has, and enforcing the solution. So I got one last question for you. It's from Rosa here in our office as well. Um, she said a lot of people still think blockchain and Bitcoin are the same thing. Um, can you explain the difference to people and kind of let them know that there is a difference between blockchain and Bitcoin, and not to take a side or a camp and say that everything's blockchain and forget about Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin is definitely an important use case for us. But can you kind of go through the difference and how important they both are?
Sure. So the best analogy in my mind is to look back at the internet and email, meaning that if we all went back in time 25 years and someone back in 1993 said, "Hey, I keep hearing about the internet. What is this thing? What's it all about?" Well, the best way we'd have to show you at that time what it was to show you email, because email was really the first and only consumer grade application that we built on this new technological platform and deployed at scale. I think we're in a similar position with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Not to say that they're not important. Just like email still continues to be a very important tool, but they're really just the first application built on this new technological platform called blockchain. And so 25 years later, we look back at email as an absolutely indispensable part of our lives. I don't think anyone can imagine life in 2018 without email. But you look back on everything we've done with the internet over the past 25 years, and email starts to look pretty boring, pretty pedestrian. And I think in 25 years, we'll talk the same way about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Integral part of our everyday lives. We couldn't imagine life without them, but boy, compared to everything we've done since, probably a little bit boring. So, yeah, I think it's just important to know that the blockchain is a lot more than cryptocurrencies. That we typically talk about blockchain as being a way to store records of two or more parties coming together to record some kind of exchange of monetary value, but there's really no requirement for there to be an exchange of monetary value or even for it to be multiple parties. So once you kind of understand that blockchain can be an immutable way to track single individuals or organizations announcing the occurrence of a significant event, then you can shift your view a little bit and start to see blockchain as a workflow or business process automation tool. In my mind, that's when things really start to get exciting for blockchain.
Amazing, great analogy. Although there are some days I could probably go without an email, but most days we got to deal with it.
I said most people. I'd be happy to go
go off the grid, right? Do you have any? Yeah. Do you have any speaking engagements or anything you want to let the people know that that are watching, that they can catch you? I think you're gonna be in New York next week. I think Dubai as well.
Yeah. We'll be speaking in New York. I'll actually be speaking with the wonderful and amazing Chad Decker.
All right.
That'll be a lot of fun.
The hype is
teaming up and doing something together.
What else do you have coming up?
We'll be doing a 2-day hackathon next week in Boston as well. So really looking forward to that. And then if you're in the Dubai area, the week of October 14th, stop on by the GuideTex conference. I'll be speaking there and hosting a few panels. We're going to do a few blockchain 101 sessions. So if you want to come in and really understand the basics or just ask me a few questions about blockchain, stop on by. So that'll be a lot of fun. They always put on great shows there at Dubai World Trade Center. I think this one won't be any different. And if you're looking for something a little bit more long-term, next spring in April, same place, Dubai World Trade Center, is the Future Blockchain Summit. I think probably the best blockchain conference around, because it is all focused on the technology and educating people on the technology. It is specifically not an ICO pitch fest. So if you actually want to go to a conference and learn something and hear a little bit different message other than, hey, give me some money, that's just a great show.
And will you speak? You'll be speaking at that one as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. We'll have to check that one
Wouldn't miss
out.
that one.
Great.
And just great time of year if you're stateside to be in Dubai. Mid-April, things still haven't gotten too hot, so nice way to shake off the long winter blues.
There you go. All right, Kris. Well, hey, I appreciate it, and we'll sync up some links to those as well here for anybody that wants to watch us later on and check that out. So I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Kris.
Absolutely, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I hate to speak on your behalf, but I'd say to the 5 or 10 people we got watching, watch again for more of these. I think we'll be looking at doing some more of these pretty soon.
Absolutely. We'll get a little better too each time. All right, Kris. Thank you.
Not a lot.
All right. Goodbye.
All right, take care, guys.